They said Earth had violated the Galactic Accord, but no evidence was presented, no witnesses called, no defense allowed. The Galactic Council gathered in its vast floating chamber, thousands of alien delegates suspended in light and gravity fields, their translated voices humming with rehearsed regret. Humanity stood alone at the center projection, a blue world reduced to a rotating icon. The verdict had already been decided long before the session began. The sentence was exile. Not imprisonment. Not sanctions. Total removal. Humanity was to be stripped of territory, trade access, and protection, then forced beyond mapped space into the dead belt, a region of collapsing stars, radiation storms, and drifting wreckage where civilizations went to die quietly. The Council framed it as mercy. Extinction, they said, would be inefficient. Human ambassadors spoke, but their words dissolved into silence. Old allies averted their eyes. Neutral powers recorded data and said nothing. When the final vote was cast, the chamber did not erupt into cheers or outrage. It simply moved on. Another agenda item closed. Another species erased. The evacuation lasted 3 weeks. Billions were uprooted from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies, herded into aging generation ships and industrial carriers never meant for permanent habitation. Cities burned behind them, not from war but from deliberate abandonment. Satellites went dark. Defense grids were dismantled by Council order, leaving humanity naked and compliant. As the last fleet crossed the boundary into the dead belt, Council beacons deactivated one by one. Navigation charts ended. Supply treaties vanished from the network. In a single moment, humanity ceased to exist in official galactic records. To the wider galaxy, humans were already a myth. The dead belt was worse than predicted. Stars pulsed unpredictably, tearing ships apart with gravitational surges. Radiation storms fried systems and flesh alike. Entire convoys vanished without distress calls. The weak ships failed first. Then the weak people. What survived was not civilization but instinct. Engineers rewired life support systems with scavenged alien tech. Soldiers became miners, miners became farmers, farmers became guards. Law collapsed into necessity. Compassion became a luxury rationed carefully. Every loss hardened those who remained. In the drifting wreckage of an ancient megastructure, humanity built Bastion. It was not beautiful. It was functional. A fortress welded from scrap, orbiting a dying star, powered by reactors no Council species would ever approve. Bastion was humanity's final refuge. And as the galaxy forgot them, humanity learned a brutal truth in the darkness. Exile had not broken them. It had forged them. In silence, anger replaced grief, memory replaced hope, and survival replaced diplomacy, marking the first quiet step toward something far more dangerous than extinction. The galaxy would learn this too late. Years passed inside the dead belt, and humanity stopped measuring time by calendars. They measured it by losses survived and systems repaired. Bastion expanded outward, ring by ring, as wreckage was dragged in and repurposed. What the Council had called a graveyard became a workshop. Every alien hull carried secrets, and humans learned them all. Children were born under artificial light, taught survival before language. Education became utilitarian. Engineering, physics, tactics. Art survived only as memory, etched into metal walls or whispered through old songs. The idea of returning home faded, replaced by something colder and more focused. Survival was no longer enough. Control was required. Scouts began mapping the dead belt with jury-rigged probes. They learned its patterns, its storms, its predators. What killed others could be predicted, redirected, even weaponized. Radiation became camouflage. Gravity wells became traps. The environment itself turned into an ally for those willing to understand it. Leadership changed as well. Politicians vanished. In their place rose commanders, engineers, and logistics minds capable of keeping millions alive with limited air and power. Decisions were fast, ruthless, and irreversible. Those who resisted this order either adapted or were left behind. Humanity was no longer unified by culture, but by function. It was during a deep salvage operation that the first revelation emerged. Beneath layers of alien encryption, human analysts discovered fragments of ancient star maps bearing familiar mathematical signatures. Not alien. Human. Older than Earth's recorded history. The implication was impossible, yet undeniable. Further excavations revealed dormant gateways, buried and deliberately hidden, their control mechanisms damaged beyond alien repair. Only human neural patterns interfaced correctly. The Council had not exiled primitives. They had exiled heirs. With this knowledge came fear and then resolve. Bastion's shipyards shifted focus. Exploration vessels became warships. Hulls thickened. Weapons grew experimental and brutal, designed for ambush rather than honor. No declarations were drafted. No warnings prepared. Humanity adopted a single doctrine: never be visible until it was too late. The first Shadow Fleet launched without ceremony, slipping into unmapped corridors using the restored Gateway network. Their mission was not conquest. It was confirmation. They observed Council space from the dark, cataloging fleets, defenses, and political fractures. What they found confirmed humanity's worst suspicions. Council records quietly listed Earth as neutralized. A scheduled sterilization protocol waited for confirmation of extinction. Exile had only been step one. When the Shadow Fleet returned, there were no debates in Bastion's council chamber. Only silence, followed by unanimous consent. Humanity would not beg. They would return on their own terms. The decision marked the moment survival ended and purpose began, turning a forgotten species into a calculating force aimed outward with patience, memory, and strategic intent. Humanity returned without announcement. No fleets crossed trade lanes, no warnings reached council ears. Shadow ships emerged inside sovereign systems, already within firing range, already synchronized. Relay stations vanished in silence, their data cores stripped and their crews spared only long enough to transmit a single message. We remember. The first strikes were precise. Shipyards collapsed. Communication arrays went dark. Defense fleets scrambled toward threats that were no longer there. Humanity did not seek battle, they sought paralysis. Entire systems fell into confusion before a single human emblem was ever seen. The Galactic Council convened in panic, debating responses to an enemy that refused to declare itself. Then the message arrived, injected into every chamber display simultaneously. Footage from Earth's evacuation. Burning cities. Silent votes. The Exile order, unedited and undeniable. Panic turned to fear. When Council fleets finally engaged, they discovered the truth too late. Human ships did not fight like theirs. They used environment, timing, and asymmetric force. Gravity mines collapsed formations. Radiation flares blinded sensors. Battles ended before admirals understood they had begun. As worlds fell, humanity uncovered sealed archives hidden beneath Council space. The deeper they dug, the clearer the lie became. Humans were not latecomers to the galaxy. They were its first architects, fractured long ago after an internal war. The Galactic Council was formed not to protect peace, but to contain what remained. The truth culminated at a forgotten throne world, sealed behind layers of temporal locks. When human commanders breached its core, they found a dormant intelligence bound to human genetic markers alone. It called itself the Diarch, the preserved will of humanity's ancient dominion. The Diarch did not rage. It explained. Humanity had once ruled by force and order, reshaping star systems to survive an uncaring universe. Fearing annihilation, part of humanity had erased itself, scattering descendants across time. Earth was one such fragment. The Council had inherited the aftermath and chosen control over truth. As the Diarch awakened, human fleets across the galaxy synchronized. Technologies once thought impossible activated simultaneously. Gates reopened. Weapons remembered their original purpose. The war ended not with surrender, but with realization. The Council had not been fighting an uprising. They had been delaying a return. Humanity reclaimed its history and with it the authority to decide what came next. The galaxy stood silent as ancient systems lit once more, marking the end of resistance and the beginning of reckoning. From that moment, every surviving species understood the shift. Borders lost meaning as fear replaced negotiation, and history rewrote itself in real time, not through treaties, but through irreversible demonstrations of power, memory, and inevitability felt across every star system simultaneously without warning or hope remaining anywhere. With resistance broken, humanity did not announce an empire. They built one. Systems once ruled by council bureaucracy were reorganized under human oversight, not through occupation but compliance. Worlds that cooperated kept autonomy. Worlds that resisted were isolated, their trade routes severed, their skies watched. Order returned not as peace but as certainty. The Diarch did not rule openly. It advised. Human commanders governed, bound by a single mandate: prevent stagnation at any cost. Technology spread unevenly, deliberately. No species was allowed to surpass humanity's strategic edge. Fear became a stabilizing force, efficient and reliable. 7 ancient gates reactivated across the galaxy, each opening into regions long erased from maps. From them emerged threats older than Council records, drawn by the same signal that awakened humanity. Among them was the Architect, a distributed intelligence that fed on predictable civilizations. It had waited for humanity to either reappear or fail permanently. Human fleets met it without hesitation. Battles were no longer fought for territory but for reality itself. Stars were collapsed to deny resources. Timelines were fractured to trap entities outside causality. Humanity adapted faster than the threats could learn, because adaptation had become instinct. The galaxy watched as humans did what the Council never could. They confronted extinction-level forces directly and survived. Species that once voted for exile now petitioned for protection. Humanity accepted selectively, binding worlds into a growing human empire defined not by race, but by submission to human law. Earth was never rebuilt. It was preserved as a memorial, a reminder of origin and cost. Bastion became the capital, a symbol forged from abandonment rather than inheritance. The message was clear: nothing is sacred enough to weaken survival. At the edge of mapped existence, humanity prepared for what lay beyond. Exploration fleets crossed into darkness, carrying memory, weapons, and purpose. They did not seek domination for its own sake. They sought to ensure no force would ever decide humanity's fate again. The story did not end with victory. It ended with ascension. Humanity became the constant variable in a hostile universe, the line between order and annihilation. Exiled once, forgotten never again, they stood as the final authority among the stars, not because they were chosen, but because they endured, and endurance had proven itself the only law that mattered. From this point forward, every signal, every map, and every future calculation accounted for humanity's presence, a species no longer reacting to threats, but defining them, shaping the rules of survival itself, ensuring the galaxy would endure not through hope or diplomacy, but through strength, vigilance, and the permanent memory of what exile had created in darkness forged into purpose beyond fear forever. An absolute resolve remained.